becoming a BIM professional is having foundational skills in built environment plus expertise. And I'd like to now bring the professionals into the room with our BIM panel, and please, if you can join us. We're going to have a panel discussion about what it means to be in these roles, digital leads, managers, coordinators, modelers, etc. And our facilitator, Filtane from the University of Cape Town in construction management, is going to help us understand better what it means to work in this world. As Amanda comes up, I would like you to also maybe perhaps think of questions you'd like to ask our panel members, and we'll spend the good part of half an hour talking about what it means to actually be in this career. So panelists, as you come up with a speaking opportunity, please just iterate your name and introduce yourself for the audience so that we know who we're talking to. I've put them on the screen as well. They're on your Miro board as well, and you can always find all details about these panelists at the BIM community website. And I highly encourage you to connect with them on LinkedIn, whether you're a CEO or a consultant or a student, and start figuring out how they matter in your firm. So Amanda, I'm going to hand over to you, and panel, I hope you enjoy.
Thank you. Molweni. How are you? Awesome. So I tried to activate a few modules in my brain from archives. One of them is Gombase Afrikaans, and another one is Setswana Sako Pitori. So I had to tell my GPS this is where we are now. So if you hear a bit of weird other type of language, please know it's those two modules being activated from the past. My name is Amanda Filtane. I will be taking you through the next session. And to do that, excuse the following occupational hazard. I am a lecturer by profession now. The core discipline is construction management. But I need to kind of activate your brain so that we sail in the same journey in this conversation. In setting the scene, I had made the following notes to say that the School of Psychology and Philosophy tells us about the basis of humanity, how we are able to have, for example, people who are born knowing how to be mechanics, people who are born with a skill to know what to do in certain things. So there's a certain level of humanity that has a born talent. We have here with us, and I will call them today, a set of pioneers. And pioneers, by their very nature, are never taught. They lead in the development of new things, right? So I would like you to view this second discussion as us having a view of these pioneers. But whenever there's concepts that need to be multiplied, the multipliers need the rules of the game so that they can take these rules from pioneers and they are able to multiply and obtain the same results. So why now are we in this conversation? We are trying to extract information to build the science. What is science in its definition? It is the application of formulas that can at least guarantee you a similar outcome or a similar results should you use the formula that science has provided. So our science now is a data extraction. We are having information that is being shared with us. Why is this information useful? We need to build best practice. If you've been part of BIM community events, you will know that as South Africa is Africa, we do not need to start from scratch in this digital journey, but we start from best practice. That best practice is implemented by some of these digital leaders in front of us, and as they're sharing their journey, you need to know where it leads you. We only have a starting point, but the destinations are different. We've got architects in the room, we've got students, we've got practitioners across the built environment. So as we do the discussions, lead with the trail of conversation that builds onto your portfolios. So I would like us to not be fixated on what is not, but be more excited about what could be. So here, I'm looking at the age group of my panelists, and I can tell you with absolute certainty, none of them have done a degree in their undergrad where there was a course called BIM. Am I lying? But we've got a large number of people in the audience who ask, but what course must I take? They are leading digital teams. They've never been taught a BIM course. So let us hear from the pioneers so that we can multiply. That multiplication might lead into new curriculums, new businesses, new markets, and it is up to you to know which string of this new market we are talking about you are multiplying on. So, without spoiling it, we have our panelists, and as the pioneers in this digital space, I would like for you to introduce, we've heard stages 0 to 9, so if you can introduce yourself as a team and share with us from stage 0 to 9, which team do you lead? Are you leading a team at stage 0? Are you leading a team at stage 9? And what are those functions of that team? Then we will build on the conversations further. Can we please celebrate them before they start?
Do I have to stand up? Hello? Okay. Hello, I'm Ambrose Chikukwa. I trained as a geomatic engineer. Currently, I am a PhD student at University of Johannesburg, especially, working on digitalization, digital transformation. Thank you.
Okay, how's it everyone? I'm Thabelo, Netshivhungululu. Right, so to answer Amanda's question, the role I've been fulfilling lately in the river stages that were discussed earlier, it's mainly it's essentially almost everything, but focused more on BIM coordination, right? I've been doing it for almost 12 years. I think we'll unpack a bit further later, okay?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's Gary Mansfield, BIM manager. And I actually manage teams from stage 0 to stage 6, 7, from design up until construction. Yeah.
Hi, I think I've introduced myself in the previous panel. I think my involvement would be from predominantly stage 2 through to stage 6 as well on the handover. The bulk of our work is spent in stages 2 and 3, where we do the technical designs and get that construction ready.
Hello everyone, I'm Augustine. I work at Moderna, and I am the team leader for the reality capture and as-built modeling team for us.
Morning everyone, I'm Elna van der Merwe, working for DRA Global. We're a mining and processing design and operational company. I'm getting involved from 0 all the way through to 9. We're fortunate to have an operation section as well, so we do get access to all of that information coming back from a wide variety of operating mines. Thanks.
Good afternoon everyone, I'm Anien Nauta, and I'm currently working as a BIM manager at ACOM. So we are a large-scale engineering and a design consulting firm. I'm also a professional architect, but as I said, I currently work as a BIM manager. And yeah, I'm basically involved from stage 1 to 6, design up until construction, and leading teams to that.
I spend most of my time trying to figure out what's going on. Because every day we discover more things that we don't know. We thought we knew, and then we discover, oops, didn't see that coming. So I'm Richard, I'm the digital lead at our engineering company, and I work with, my teammates are sitting over there, I work with a bunch of people who are cleverer than me, who are really into the detail. And the role that I play is essentially standing on a soapbox saying, do more, let's keep going, don't stop, as we try and drive what we're doing. My background is I'm a roads engineer. So this BIM thing is very new to us as roads engineers, but we're getting there. I'm also studying, but yeah, involved in just trying to make sense of all of it.
Thank you very much. So the next question, which you can take in any order, I'm not targeting anyone as yet, is what features do you look for when you're building your BIM teams? When you need to set up a digital delivery team, and within the firm that you have, what are the characteristics that you look for to build up that digital delivery team?
I'll go first. Some experience would be an advantage, but something that I personally look for is someone that's willing to learn and someone that's willing to listen. Because you need to listen to be able to decipher all the information, put it in order, and then also try and explain to your project teams and your modelers and everyone what they need to do. What's the actual requirement of the project? So for me, that's important. You struggle to find people that really want to listen.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, if we advertise for a position, you can see the job specification, and if you've got the skills to do that type of job, that gets you to the interview table. But if I'm interviewing someone for a position, doesn't matter what position it is, I want to know that their attitude is good. Are they teachable? Are they enthusiastic? And they need to have a passion for what they want to do. We don't want people to just clock in and clock out every day, because they're not going to add value. And I think in the developing world of digital engineering, you need passion to drive beyond just, okay, I push these buttons, Xavier. I think that was a very good point, is to have the passion to drive you beyond what I did yesterday.
I also, just to add to that, all of those items you mentioned there, fantastic. Also problem solving. You need to be a critical thinker and a problem solver. So in most cases, what I do when I start putting processes and workflows together is based on what I know and what I have done over the last decade and a half, right? But then I also challenge my team members in the sense of, I've got a workflow that has been working for the last, I don't know how long. If you can improve on it, we then implement that one. So problem solving and critical thinking is also very important to me.
Did anyone hear a digital certificate required here? And the question was, you are building a digital team, but not a single one of them so far has said we want a particular certificate. All right, you may continue. Do you want to add any?
Yeah, and I would also say you would also need to be able to think for yourself and not just wait for someone to tell you what to do. Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. Sometimes you get a task or a project and you don't know where to start, and you actually need to decide, okay, where are we going to start? How are we going to break it down? Also, like everyone said, the willingness to learn, to evolve, to continuously improve, and also be an innovator, I think.
Okay. Maybe I can add on as well. Most of the stuff has been mentioned, but you should have a good people skills as well. You need to be very patient, willing to impart knowledge, right? I know in the industry, most of the time you want to come in as an expert and everyone must lean on you, but I look for someone who's got good people skills and willing to teach as well. Yep.
Right. Sure, you can go
We
for
keep
the
on
last.
adding. Just wanted to add after what Anien said, also someone that is willing to make a decision. It's okay if the decision was wrong, you'll find out later, but at least you took a decision. You can base it on some information that was available at the time. That's important also. Take a stand, make a call and go on with it.
This following question is very, very short. If you are looking at the size of your firm, what is the relative percentage of the cohort that you say, these are our digital guys, this is our digital team? So if you are a firm of 30 and you've got a digital team, what is that percentage? Is it 2 people out of the 30? Is it, what are we looking at? How digital are these teams or the firms that you operate within?
It should be 100%.
Should be, but what is it?
So I think there's probably about 10 to 15% of people who are really actively wrestling with stuff. People in formal positions that have got digital in their title, it's a small group. But really, the way that the world is moving, all of us need to be working digitally.
Thank you very much. We've got 15% or less, the second panelist. We're going to get all the percentages relatively. Give or take.
I actually agree with 100%. But yeah, I think if I need to take our organization as an example, we have a dedicated digital team. But once again, everyone else in the team, if it's the designers, the modelers, the coordinators, everyone needs to have, or that digital sense and expertise in that.
But currently the cohort is sitting at what percentage? That digital team cohort out of Oracle?
Let's say 50.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Yeah, I agree with the 15% more or less. We have grown, that group of us has grown significantly over the last 14 months. And interesting to see where it will be next year this time. We are going through a growth spur in that space at the moment.
Thank you. Still 15?
So I work for Modena Design Centers, so we're definitely at 100%.
Otherwise you're out of a job though.
Yeah, so at York Bros Construction, our core business is outsourced CAD. So 100% of my staff complement is BIM technicians. We are sitting at different levels where we've got senior BIM technicians and junior BIM technicians. Some of us don't even come from an engineering background, where we see a gap in the market. And coming back to the first question, you have to be willing to change, willing to understand BIM, and willing to get into the whole engineering and understanding the built environment. So again, a BIM technician doesn't need to be designing a 20-story hotel. It could literally be that crucial bridge that crosses that river and connects humanity. So from that side, I would say for the larger engineering skills and firms, a target would be 30%, because the CEO doesn't need to be a BIM technician. But he might have very good business skills or how to run a company. So there's that.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to add on that, we actually need to divide it here in two. So I'm going to talk about it from an engineering perspective. So our office is divided into design engineering, and then we've got our drafting, modeling, and our development of that information. So if you look at it in that way, I would say that 100% of my drawing and modeling and BIM technician teams are digital, has the ability to do digital design. However, there's different or varied levels of digital design, depending on what information it is you need to develop and how you want to develop that information. From an engineering perspective, in our engineering office, I don't expect, like you mentioned, Nathan, that my senior electrical engineer needs to know or do the actual design in 3D, but they need to understand what is involved in getting the information digitized. So they need to know what the workflows entails, they need to know what the processes entails, and ultimately at the end of the day, what is required to develop or deliver a digital asset. So I would go with 50%, basically.
Cool, thank you.
Cool.
At varied levels.
Yeah, I'm a bit like Augustine. We have to be 100% at Modena, right? But when it comes to servicing the built environment, right, and looking at a staff count of like around 100, similar to what Gary has mentioned, from an architectural perspective, I'd say the core BIM team, like having your BIM managers, BIM coordinators, etc., I'd have that at 10%, right? However, the ability to deliver a digital information that should sit with every single person within the business, or at least have one or two people in your project team with the ability to deliver that information as well.
Thank you. With my other hat as a consultant, we all typically, digital, but I'll go along with Richard that everybody needs to have a digital culture. So it's a digital organization. The thinking is digital, so it doesn't matter who it is really. But of course, it's various levels, as Khaled showed earlier on. So it's a strategy. So somebody's thinking digital, right down to the guy who's actually modeling something. So I would go along with the 100% that Richard mentioned earlier on.
All right, thank you. So we've got traditional consulting sitting at about 15% of digital teams, whereas everyone should be digital. The next question. The sector that we provide services to, you hardly find one-stop shops. With the one team, the 15% digital team needs to interact with another team. What strategies have you used to not lose on your digital delivery while you're partnering with other stakeholders in the delivery of this project? If I listen to most of you clearly, there was a missing stages. There was no one who said we're involved from stage 0 or stage 1. We had a lot stage 2, stage 4, stage 6, and so on. So what happens with the information from stage 0 and stage 1? Who needs to pick that slack? But we can park that question and say, as you work with all these other stakeholders, what strategies are you making to not lose on that digital richness and those information management strategies you are implementing as a firm? Because now the firm doesn't work in isolation. So how are you building teams outside your teams? What strategies are you implementing? You can go for it, Gary.
I think it goes back to the very first question, is how do you put your team together? So if you're sitting with a team that is doing stage 0, stage 1 design work and whatever the case may be, you would need to put someone strategically there that can assist with the digitization of that information. And that would potentially be your BIM manager or your BIM coordinator, because at that stage, depending on what discipline you're in, for example, again, I'm going to be referring back to engineering, we don't tend to model and we don't tend to create detailed models at stage 0 and 1, right? So it's more design intent, it's schematics, it's what do you call it, reports, it's documentation that is being generated, and that is where your engineering staff is basically capable of doing that, but you just need someone like your BIM manager or your coordinator that is going to guide them on how information should be stored.
So are you referring to guidance of an external entity?
Correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And then when it gets to the other parts of the business, or the other parts, there again, you're going to need to strategically put your team together that is, once again, at varied levels, where the one person is going to take lead within that discipline, and you're going to have almost like a junior person that is going to assist, that can be mentored as the project basically goes on. Can I just...
Sure.
I'll just add on to what Gary was mentioning, yeah? Most of the time when you're approaching projects and stuff in the built environment, you're dealing with a whole lot of stakeholders, right? And from my experience, what I've seen is you need to set up, for those requirements that were mentioned earlier in the previous session, you need to set up a standard of how you're going to deliver this information from stage 0 all the way through to stage 9. That's basically almost like the golden thread to the different stages. And then thereafter, you then get into what Gary was mentioning, getting responsible people for different stages. Okay.
I just want to piggyback off of that, Thabelo, 100%. In today's world that we're living in on digital, with the images that we saw up there, and we had a nice giggle, we saw there's a room with 40 draftsmen, and that's just the architect. They're still in concept. The engineer doesn't know this building's coming. So the architects are generally your starting point. So they'll be hacking at this for a good 6 to 12 months before anyone even knows, not even council knows that this building's coming. So I know it sounds funny, but there's different stages where these different teams get involved. And by the time we're breaking ground and we're ready to start constructing, the team will be involved on that project for the duration of those 24 months that it takes to build it. And there's constantly going to be those changes and manipulating how the designs are going on, especially when it goes back to the engineers and stuff. The architect then also constantly gets on board. And in the beginning, the architect might be, there's the lead architect and the lead digital designer from the architectural firm. and he starts it off in the first 3 months, the client will say yes. Now he onboards another 5 members in his own firm. And then that digital team becomes 6 or 7 guys, and that's just the architects. And so you go on, so the lead engineer or the lead BIM guys from each different discipline then starts getting involved, and as the project gets better and better and there's certain stages of information required, that's when the more junior staff get on board.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think it does boil down to the standard, and there's a very good standard that's there, which is the ISO 19650. It says this is how you're going to set it up from the client to the lead appointed party to all the other subcontractors, right? So if I'm going to work with Richard, he's going to say, thou shalt, and that's it. If I'm not going to do that, I don't qualify. So I think the magic bullet is the standard that's there, and it's already there.
Okay. Thank you very much. So if we can get to the nuts and bolts now of what happens within this team. We've seen some of the key deliveries and functions. I mean, Khaled went into each stage and explained. The first panel session that we had, or discussion, was explaining all of these functions that need to be delivered from stage 9. In your particular teams, what does the work platform look like to execute these roles that we've seen? Who is responsible within a team? If you can frame for us and give us an example to say, yes, we want the attitude, we want the skill, we want someone who's independent, but they need to use something. What is that digital platform that enhances these soft skills that they possess? So can you share with us what your workstations look like, hardware, software, that supplements this digital delivery of these awesome teams? Thank you.
2 terabyte hard drive, 64 gigabytes, and 3 screens.
It's usually equipment that the IT department gets frightened about. Yeah, it's obviously having decent hardware, decent internet connections, because sometimes the information that you're managing gets quite intense.
To add to this, as you are answering me, these are teams of 15% of total team sizes in these firms. But what is their digital equipment and working platform budget relative to other non-digital teams? What are we looking at?
Quarter of a million per person.
Are we allowed to say this?
$250,000 per person. So a team of 4 is about, set you back $1 million. And you need to renew that after 3 years because it's not relevant anymore. So you can hand your old laptops back to, that's, that's software alone. That's excluding hardware. No, you get entry-level stuff for the smaller firms. It depends on what you're busy with. If you are busy with an entire suburb, like Hatfield had the digital twin, I believe, they would have needed some serious hardware to run that. Same software, but it's the hardware that makes it work even harder.
Aren't you interested in the cost of this equipment? We want to know, because if you're sitting here with best practice, we're not asking for the rand value, but we're asking for relative cost of expenditure to set up these digital teams. You've got amazing responsibilities you said you're delivering. The roles are amazing, but what makes it possible?
Amanda, a good entry-level laptop, which you can take to site, which is important, so you don't have a desktop PC. The junior BIM modelers can be stuck in the office. They don't often get to go out of the office. They can have some serious hardware that's desktop based. But a good laptop will set you back starting at about 20,000 Rand. The Dell Precisions, the 7800s, those are your monsters. They'll set you back about 65,000 to about 150,000 Rand. Most of the infrastructure projects will need something of that magnitude. Then you've got your software packages, they standard. So anything between your 30,000 Rand entry level, if you're just working on AutoCAD and CAD 3D, up to about 100,000, depends if you're going to work on cloud platforms, your ACCs that Modena will be able to explain more about, and then your Revit, your Inventor if you're doing family creation and stuff like that. Depends on your project.
Thank you very much. We'll try censor any data that is confidential. I mean, for now, you've got access to hear these amounts. They are not in any presentation that can be taken back. Rich, please share.
I think there's quite a few places where you need to spend money, Amanda. So definitely the hardware on your desk, your IT hardware and networking in the office, and your connection to the World Wide Web. Every year we're needing to upgrade that because we're just transmitting more and more volumes. I mean, we're working on projects where one model can be 6 gigabytes. It takes, I mean, Rihanna, it took you about 6 hours to open one of those models, right? Some of our point clouds that Louis will talk about tomorrow, we couldn't actually get the survey back from the surveyor. He needed to deliver an external 2 terabyte hard drive to us because that's how big the data was, right? So I think in South Africa, and this is a very real, practical, sober point, we are on the receiving end of a pretty crappy exchange rate. 20 to 1 means that our software is expensive. What it does mean, coming back to the people side of things, is that when we use technology, we've got to do it properly. Because the return on investment, for those of you who are business leaders, the return on investment on technology depends on how well the people use it. The tool costs what the tool costs. The only way you're going to get that return is to have people who are able to use it effectively. So for us and companies that need big volumes, we've got 2,000 plus technical people, and each of them needs one of those monster computers. Each of them needs, not all of them use Autodesk or Bentley, they use combinations, but we've got to equip people with big tools. So one of our big challenges, and it's the same with CKR, it's the same with all of us, is to make sure that we don't just have technology that's going to go halfway, but we've got to make sure that everyone is passionate, everyone can problem solve, everyone can do these things so that we can actually use the technology. So it's a double-edged sword, right?
All right.
I just want to add to that, so it's fit for purpose as well. We do proper investigations to make sure that the hardware that we do buy is actually suitable for that specific purpose. You don't want to buy 20 iPads and then 3 months later the software supplier changed the specs and then the guys can't open the model on site anymore. Then those 20 iPads cost you more because no one wants to use it, and you've also lost the confidence of the people inside using the applications. So it's a fine line to manage all of that. But it's sometimes better buy the more expensive one because it will do the job till the end.
I think what I just want to add, apart from the software and the hardware, is also to invest in your training and upskilling of your teams and knowledge assessments to constantly, assess knowledge, see where your team stands, where is upskilling required. That's also quite a big part of your investment.
All right. By the way, we do have a session after our break where we are going to talk about that 85%. Digital teams only make about 15%, we can say, but there's the 85% that needs to be brought on board. So we are going to attend to those questions. That's in the following session. So, without talking about upskilling and training, we are looking at our 15% digital teams. What workflows and standards and procedures are you making reference of across your organizations that help these teams work better? Are you using any standards? Have you built your own standards? What are the reference documents that you use for excellence within the team?
So that 85 and 15 split, maybe that's not a very good reflection, because I guess the 15% are doing a lot of the key thinking and they're focused on this, but the people involved in those workflows is the whole delivery team, and I think that we'll probably feel the same way. So yes, there are certain people who are specifically tasked at figuring out how do we work within the disciplines. So we've got different types of engineering. How do they work together? We got people fulfilling different roles in the teams. How do they work together? How do we manage that information? And then as we write those recipes, essentially, it helps everyone participate. That's also the way that we build bridges with our partnering companies. So, you know, we often find ourselves in situations where the appointing party, the client, appointed an architect as the principal agent, and then a year later, the council and we found out that there's a building. But at that point, we were appointed as part of a team with maybe 3 other companies. Sometimes we've never even worked with those companies before, for whatever reason. And at that stage, we've got to then figure out, okay, so this is how we work, how do you work, and how do you work? And then figure out those workflows on how are we going to participate without breaking each other's work, essentially. The idea of a common data environment, which you heard about in the first session, then becomes important. You know, who's going to provide that? Who's going to invite who to work in a particular place? So those workflows, I think, are the way that we take the 15 and blend it in with the broader company. So it's not that there's, you know, 15% of people and the rest of them aren't. Don't misunderstand.
I know you're trying to be nice, Rich. We can call out on the 85. I'm kidding.
Okay, so within my team, so it's reality capture and as-built modeling. So I would say our workflows is pretty much determined, or especially on the reality capture side, by the software workflows and best practices to follow when dealing with point cloud models. On the modeling side, I think workflows is based on your team, and I am very lucky to have a very strong team that I can rely on and listen to in terms of establishing our workflows, and it's a continuous thing that we update because we can't stagnate on a certain workflow, and as a team leader it's your responsibility to say, listen, we have these guidelines, we have these standard operating procedures and workflows in place that we do deliver the models at the end of the day, but we need to constantly adapt and listen to your team, working with the data, working with the models, to at the end of the day get the better workflows.
Sorry, I was trying to think of a spreadsheet that we're working with on one of our projects. It's called Lessons Learned. Yeah, so from a workflow and process perspective, it can always be optimized. You know the saying, practice makes perfect, all right? I've got another saying where I go, practice makes improvement, because you can always better your best, all right? So when it comes to workflows and processes, what is helping us currently in the industry is standards like ISO 19650. In actual fact, we can call it SANS 19650, all right? Because we do have parts 1 and part 2 as part of our South African national standard. And 3. Wow, that needs a round of applause, man. So that already helps in the information management side of a project. What is helping as well is everybody is now aware that we need to develop information in a specific way, in a specific format, and we need to name these documents in a specific way, in a specific format. So when we start talking to external stakeholders, like working with projects on architects and civil engineers, we can already have a conversation at early stages of a project. At stage 0, we can start having conversations around how are we going to manage this data. And because we've got standards already in place that can assist us with this process, it's no matter an issue of he said, she said, and myself and Richard won't fight, but my naming standard is better than yours. There will be nothing like that, because there is already a standard in place, and that is what we need to follow. That is what is currently assisting us.
Sure. Cool. Sorry, sir. Yeah, just adding on to Mr. Mansfield, yeah? Right. We come, in South Africa specifically, we come from where we used to work, everyone believed in their own standards. Right? And if I'm working, I'm going to be picking on Richard. We go to Richard's firm, it's like, no, you need to work like this, you need to work like that. And to avoid all that, like what Mr. Mansfield here said, Gary, following the SANS 19650 standards solves a lot of those problems, right? But going back to, I think previously you also asked what it looks like, for example, in my space as a BIM coordinator, right? I like to always say BIM coordinators are normally referred to people that just click on models and report on the red and green items, right? And that's not really coordination, right? It's literally information management as well, right? You need to get involved from the writing of the BIM execution plan, right? Setting up those standards, making sure you use the correct workflows to implement those standards we talk about as well, right? So, as a coordinator, if anyone is interested in going into coordination spaces, you need to have a full knowledge of a project, know how to deliver a project from stage 0 till handover, right, and get familiar with those standards as well. It really reduces a lot of communication issues in a project. Okay, I think I'll cut it there for now.
I think what I just want to add, apart from standards, which is very important, obviously, is also to have a cohesive look at the entire process, to have a clear roadmap in terms of what needs to be done, to map it out. And then in terms of workflow specifically, is to look at, to incorporate automation. And what tools are we going to use or develop some workflows that will help us do things more effectively, quicker, faster, and in a better way. And to spend some time around the development of that and getting those systems in place.
Absolutely. I was just going to steal those words
from
you regarding workflow. Yeah, I mean, workflow is important, and if it's automated, then it means, it's going to make everything work according to that workflow. For instance, in my other experience, I know Bentley, in their project-wise platform, actually enforces the ISO 19650 workflow. So if it doesn't comply, if you don't name the document properly according to your convention, it's not going to pass. And if it doesn't go through the workflow, the changing of the version and so on, it won't work. So it's already built in.
This next question is for the student complement in the room. Where are all the students? Don't you want to know how much these digital teams earn? It's the one question they always ask. I'm kidding, I won't get to ask that. But please do ask them, does it change the salary pay if you are in that 15%? You know what I mean? Then you can upskill yourself and the attitude is going to improve because, the bank balance is positive and all.
Can I say something about it?
Sure. It wasn't the question.
I know that wasn't the question, but I just want to say something about it. So what we've experienced is, at the moment, currently, the state with regards to BIM managers, BIM coordinators, and BIM technicians, unfortunately in our industry, it's become a very specialized thing. There are very few people that is doing it. There's very few people that can do it, right? And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm just going to say it anyways. So what's currently happening is, when we're looking for staff and you're looking for people that can assist you in that processes, their salary becomes very, very niche. Let's say niche, because it's specialized. All right. So the more and more we're going to have individuals that is going to be taking this on, that niche is going to start balancing itself out, and then we're going to start getting back to where it's supposed to be.
If I could just add on to that. So I always make the joke about the painter. So if you're going to give me 6 months, I can paint the room with a paintbrush, and that's going to be very cheap. You're going to cut my time short to 2 months, well, I can use a roller, but it's a little bit expensive. But if you're only going to give me 1 week, I've got a spray painter, but now I need an air compressor, I need the pipes, I need the hoses, I need the apparatus, I need the know-how to use that hardware. And that's the BIM technician. He knows how to use the hardware. Or you can go down the road with Mr. Bean and just put a bomb in the paint tin.
All right. In the spirit of collecting lessons learned, and for the rest of the audience to not start from scratch, as your closing remarks, what would you give as advice to those who are still building their 15% and their 100%? What lessons have you learned in leading these digital teams? What advice can you give? This is now open-ended to say, what are some of the challenges? And because we are solutions-based, we would like a challenge with what you've done to overcome any challenges you've experienced. This is either in a business sense or in operation sense, but what tips can you share to those who are still about to build their digital teams? And this is for everyone. Thank you.
I don't mind starting that one off. Your life skills is the backbone of what the skills are required to get into engineering in totality, or to get into architecture in totality. QSs, project managers, maintenance and facilities managers, property managers, they all form a fundamental part of the built environment in totality. So even the road that we're going to drive out on this afternoon, leaving this facility today, someone designed that thing. And it's his soft skills in just life development. You're not going to get a 12-year-old that knows how to do this. But it's also equally important to understand you play to your strengths. And that's what I advocate in my teams at all times. Play to your strengths, and the project will run smoothly. So that's my take on that one.
So if I can add to that, maybe. So definitely speaking to the students here, it's all about your passion that you put in at the end of the day. And in all honesty, don't become a master of none. If you, or for me personally, what I did is I did my undergrad in architectural, and then I went into the geospatial industry, and that's why I have an absolute passion for my team, and what I do is in the reality capture and as-built modeling side of it. And I think you do need to expand into more than one industry, definitely. And have a mutual respect for everyone at the end of the day. Have a respect for where the surveyors are coming from, where the architects are coming from, where the engineers are coming from, so that at the end of the day you understand what the main goal is and what you're all working towards.
Okay. Yeah, I think people should learn, be very aware of the words, a phrase called technology fallacy. It's not just about technology, so that's very, very real. It's more about change management. It's changing organizational culture, changing processes, change. So it's organizational change rather than obsession with technology.
Okay. Just final remarks, Amanda? Okay. Right, so personally, what I did, although I come from an architectural background, I exposed myself to all the different disciplines in the built environment. Right, so I'm not saying go in and study structural engineering, mechanical, etc., but expose yourself. Know how the guys work, know how they put together a building, and that helped me to be a better BIM coordinator, because I know how a building gets put together, right? And then on a business level, we still see a lot of businesses are hesitant to invest in their digital culture, right? And you'll see now the leading firms that invested in their digital culture, they're leading because they've put money in it. And they're seeing the value of having their 100%, like what Richard mentioned, having everyone thinking digitally and thinking of BIM and not just as 2D and delivering a project, right? So it's very important for businesses to invest in that, in their own digital culture.
So I just want to complete the saying of jack of all trades. So what I'm looking for once again in my digital complement of staff in the office is, yes, you can be a master of one. However, the saying is jack of all trades, master of none, but I'd rather have a master of many than a master of one.
Okay.
close
I'll
everyone.
answer it in 2 questions. Also, business focused. Don't wait to start with. Doesn't matter how small you start. Just start to have the conversations and start to do the study and investigations. And don't rush that part. Spend enough time to really look at what's the need for your business. Do you do it for yourself? What's your client's need? What's your applications? You really need to do a full scope investigation on what your need is, and then systematically work through that. And while you're busy with that, we went through that 3 years ago. Big company, so we were about 42 people part of that internal project. Those 42 people before that stage never worked together because we were never on the same job. And it was very good to understand that every department in the business has got the same problems. You think it's only your group of people that struggle with something. You think it's only estimating, or only the engineering group, or only the design group. Everyone's got the same challenges. It's that access to information at the right time. And you go through all of that investigations, make sure that you have proper discussions, and also understand the processes within the different business units. And the outcome of that, money can't pay for that. You will pick up just at the pace once you've got your systems in place that no one can stop you. But you need to go through that process slowly. And then on a personal thing, my journey is very interesting, so I'm not going to go through it now. I don't have an engineering or an architectural background. I'm qualification. Worked in the industry for 17 years. But you need to work hard and never stop learning. Listen, when you walk into a boardroom and there's people older than you, listen. They've done work, they've seen things, made mistakes that you haven't done. And use their experience to teach you so that you can become better.
I'm also going to answer from a personal experience and then from a business perspective. So on a personal level, what I've, in terms of my career path, I've tried different things. So I started off as an architect. I worked in industry for a couple of years. And it was a curiosity in terms of what BIM is and what a role in that would look like that sort of made me shift towards a BIM role. And what I've seen is, try different things to eventually establish what your niche is and what you are interested in, and then navigate or streamline your path towards that. But at the same time, you also need to be open to new things and to be flexible and to want to learn new things. And also ask questions. Don't be scared to ask questions or reach out to people to get more insight and knowledge around things. And then from a business perspective, like everyone else has said, although you need to be realistic in terms of your goals and strategies, also don't be scared to think outside of the box and to fail at sometimes. Sometimes you need to go through a couple of failures to actually get to a point where you have success. Rely on your team and get the right people together, have the right resources with the different skill sets to help you with your strategy and going forward.
I guess to the business leaders, I can say one of the things we've realized is that we underestimated how important good information is. We've got servers full of information, it's not necessarily good. So business leaders, I think, pay attention to your IT system. Pay attention to how people are creating information. It's important. And the way the world is moving, that information is going to make or break your business in future. To the students and those entering this new career path, I guess the same story. Understand how information plays into your particular areas that you're studying, whatever it is that you're studying. But think about how does information and data look like in future. The world has changed already, and it's going to change even more. The way that data affects our jobs and our lives and what we produce. Stay at the, as far as you can, towards the front of that thinking. Keep up to date with that, because it's very hard to catch up if you if you fall behind. So information is important. You keep hearing this number 19650. That code is all about information. South Africa is excited because we've now taken that international code and made it our own. It's because we need to manage information better. So really, lots of tech, processes, all those things. And information is really the core of everything we want to try and do.
Thank you to the panelists. Please give them a round of applause. So this was the part of the discussion where we're looking at the digital team leaders. We're still going to unpack most of these conversations, and you will see most of these familiar faces in the next set, where we go into the details of how they got to be digital leaders, what kind of upskilling techniques they used, what strategies they used, how did they become to be the pioneers that they are, you know what I mean? They must tell and share how they upskilled and how they are upskilling their teams, and how we can multiply the digital teams that we have out there across our businesses, across practices, across the functions that we need to fulfill to build better buildings, infrastructure, and ultimately the world. I'll see you after the break. Thank you very much. Khaled, did you have any? We're good. Please enjoy your break. We will resume at 13:20 when you hear the bell.